Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's going to be another quick video, hopefully. I'm going to do a portrait of Grand Moff Tarkin. Since it is the last day of May, and I kind of missed May the 4th, I thought I'd do something Star Wars related. You may have noticed I'm starting off with a background color of a slightly desaturated cad red, I would say. I like having a warmer background to start with. That way, when I'm pulling out these lighter, cooler highlights, they really pop from the background. Also, it eliminates me having any white spots in the painting that will be very noticeable and will pop out. So this makes it a little easier to kind of control the values. And so with that said, let's go ahead and start with our sketch. So I'm trying to think of maybe a little more graphically than I would when I'm doing my gesture drawings. So I'm going to use more straights, kind of block out these shapes. He has a very skeletal looking face, which, you know, makes him look very villainous. Very emaciated cheekbones. So this should be a fun one. Hopefully I don't botch it too bad. So the sketch doesn't need to be perfect, but hopefully it gets us kind of within the ballpark. I'm just going to do a gestural line for the eyebrows, and now I can do a little gesture line for the eyelids. I think I'm going to block in that pointy nose of his. The widow's peak. And you can see the very pronounced temporal line, you know, behind the eyebrow there. You can see at the base of his nose lines up with the base of those ears. Not 100%, but fairly close. Very pronounced muzzle here. because he's older, he's got the very little meat in those lips. Pretty much just see the mouth line. I'll do another. So when you're drawing the face, you want to make sure all the features line up with each other, that they're kind of more or less parallel to each other. You can see I need to add more cheek on the right side here. Just so we don't run out of space, I'm going to pull this over a little bit. Start punching some of those dark accents. And the line color I'm using is, it's like if you were using oil paints, it would be a little bit of cad red with some black. I took head painting at BYU, where I went to college, and I took head painting from Bob Barrett, and he always taught us to draw with cad red and with mixed with black or a burnt umber. Let's go ahead and save this real quick. All right, so we'll keep working on this sketch. I think I elevated his eyebrow a little too much there, so I'm going to pull it down. It kind of lines up with the screen right eyebrow that's sloped down a little bit. I think we can go ahead and start blocking out the eyes. So when you're doing portraits like these, it's nice to use the nostrils as a way to find the tear ducts. If you just draw a vertical line straight up, it'll kind of get you in the ballpark of where the tear duct of the eyes will be from the side of the nostrils. So we can start drawing in those eyes, those pupils. And his pupils are just little pinprick dots. And he's got these clear blue eyes that look very piercing and menacing. Makes him look very cold and calculating. Start blocking in the lower eyelids. Oh my goodness. So this is why you need to look up and zoom in and zoom out. I'm going to pull that screen right eye down a bit. There we go. Nice thing with working with Photoshop. I can see the top of his ear on the screen left kind of lines up with the corner of his left eye. So I'll use that to start blocking out the shapes, secondary shapes of the ear. Block in the rest of his neck and his collar. You can see there's one of those Death Star operators behind him in the shadow. But we're probably not going to worry too much about that. Mostly just block this in with one color. It definitely has those crow's feet on the corners of his eyes. You see that on older people. But yeah, he's so gaunt and emaciated. You can see those cheekbones, the zygomatic bones, really distinctly. And because we're doing a portrait of a celebrity, of a well-known face, we have to try to be more accurate than we are when we're just doing quick gestures. So, it's really good to use straights and constantly compare and contrast your angles to make sure things are, again, in the ballpark. I guess I like to say that a lot. In the ballpark. And here we can kind of see an edge or planar change on his forehead. So I'm going to indicate that with a soft line. And that'll make it easier for me when I go in with paint. Kind of block that out. And the philtrum of his mouth is fairly pronounced. I'm going to roughly block in some of these values. Okay, I'm going to go back in and make sure those ears are lined up. I think we need to get a little more real estate on his chin. It's very squared off, which adds to his imposing character. There's that very sharp cast shadow under his nose. I want to make sure those highlights on the eyes are about the same shape. He's got that stern expression. There's a little crease in the furrow of his brow. We can see that supercilia eminence. Kind of block that in. All right, well, I think we're ready to paint. As you can see, I kind of created a pretty good roadmap for all the shapes, the cast shadows, core shadows, and the planar changes. So yeah, we'll save again, and then we'll hold on, I'm gonna get this cast shadow there. All right, now we're ready to save. All right, so I think we're ready to jump into color. And what I'm going to do is, so I have my drawing layer here, and I'm going to create a layer underneath that where I'm just going to do essentially a comic book approach to coloring, where I'm just going to do flat color initially to establish the local colors. And when I say local colors, that would be like this entire area of his face. It would probably have like this, well, it would probably be like this local color. And then his hair, you know, that would be like a gray, probably a darker gray local color. And I would just fill that in, you know, in a flat graphic way. And then of course his shirt, you know, would be this gray color as well, and that would be one graphic shape when I fill it in that comic book coloring fashion. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So that shirt's got a little more yellow in it because it feels a bit more green. Maybe a little bit lighter. And a little more yellow. Okay. I still think we need to go a little more yellow here. Okay, that feels now a little more desaturated. So now I switched over to my textured square brush for painting. I just like how it allows me to throw in kind of graphic brush strokes very quickly. Now I'm going to block in, I think, the background color. You can see it's a lot cooler. So I'm blocking that out now. That's another thing I like about this square texture brush, is I get these really clean, sharp edges, which is nice for blocking out these flat shapes. And now for the local color of his hair, just going to be a warmer gray. So I'm going to go back down to the yellows and reds, and then pull the slider over to the desaturated zone. And when you're selecting these flat local colors, I would aim for something that's more of a halftone or a midtone, not a highlight, and definitely not a dark accent area. That way it'll be a lot easier to add those highlights and add those darker accents on top of that large mid-tone shape. Now I'm selecting for his face. Don't want to go too light. So again, I'm going to kind of aim for a, oh, that's too desaturated. That feels good. I'm going to go ahead and just fill in everything with this color. Then I can go back and establish the local color of his eyes. Nice thing about this is you can establish those local colors without worrying about rendering. You don't have to worry about gradients or describing the planes at this point. And now for the local color of the white of his eye, which is obviously not going to be white. Usually a good method is you just select the nearby flesh tone and then you pull it over to the more desaturated area. And that will get you in the ballpark. Now we'll block in his blue, those blue eyes. And again, his eyes look very blue in context, being surrounded by that warm kind of pink flesh, which is going to cause the surrounding gray, or the gray that's surrounded by it, to feel cooler and more blue. So we don't really have to go full on blue to make his eyes feel blue. Alright, so now we have all of our local colors established, and I'm going to add another layer on top of that, and now we can start finding the shadow shapes, the graphic, easy to read shadow shapes. So that would be, you know, this area and shadow underneath his chin, overlapping a part of his collar, a little bit of his shoulder, the part of his cheekbone that's turning away from the light. Here we have a pocket of shadow just upper left of his screen right eye, and then this cast shadow under his nose. So that would be the shadow shapes that I want to block in now. So I'm going to delete this. I'm just using that to be able to show you. So one thing you want to do with your paintings is it's best to try to keep separation between your warms and cools. So either you're going to have warms in your light shapes and cooler colors in your shadow shapes, or vice versa. Of course, there are, you know, exceptions, and it's not going to be 100% the case where you're not going to have any cools or warms mixing on either side. But I think as an overall general rule, that's a good rule of thumb to follow. So these shadow shapes are definitely cooler. So I'm going to go down to a darker red. And again, it's probably going to be more in the desaturated zone. It's maybe a little too far. There we go. And this doesn't have to be 100% correct. Right now we're just blocking. This is like a very simple lay-in that we're going to work on top of. Alright, we're going to save. So that's those are our shadow shapes. Again, see how flat they are? They're just graphic shapes at this point. Again, we haven't really dived into any of the rendering or the turning of form on the change planes, plane changes. Sorry. We'll do that after we save it here. All right, so before we dive into the rendering, one thing that's really nice about doing this flat color approach with local colors is you can easily go back in and select entire areas, and you can shift the colors using the hue saturation sliders. And obviously this color is cooler than what we ended up with. So I'm just gonna play around with the sliders until that is feeling closer to what we want. We'll do that with the face. And now with the hair, I think the hair is actually feeling pretty good. And then we can select those shadow shapes now. And look how easy that was. It took 2 seconds since we created those graphic flat shapes. Making selections is super easy. So here we can and yeah, I think we're just going to get a little more magenta in those shadows. Okay, so now I think we are good to go. So at this point, when I start rendering, I'm going to create a layer that goes on top of my line drawing and on top of these flat colors. So about everything that I do now is going to feel more like actual paint. And stepping back and looking at this initial sketch, it's pretty evident that this eye here is a little too big. So I'm going to go ahead and shrink that down just a hair. Yeah, I think that feels about right. Okay, so now we can start blocking out this painting. I'm going to define planes of his nose. And I'm going to look for other areas that seem to share that similar color. And start hitting those areas too. We can see those shadow shapes are pretty dark, so we'll have to lighten them up. And I'm going to go with a warmer light source. Looking at that highlight, it's definitely got some yellow in it. So notice how this is starting to get a bit of dimension to it. Now that I'm starting to render out these planes and get some variation between those and the values, and also in the hues. And I think the hottest highlight is going to be on the tip of his nose there. Again, I'm going to make it a warm highlight. Alright, we'll just keep on trucking here. Oops. So I'm going to go back to rendering the face, but I think I'm going to go ahead and block in that rim lighting with a cooler color. Probably do like a light teal color. Let's see. Yeah, that feels good. I just want to block this in so I have that nice reminder that where my cools and my warms will be. So I can react with them both together in context. This color's catching a little bit of that. It's actually not quite as bright, so I'm going to dim that down a little bit. One thing that's nice is you can create a shape that is larger than you want it to be, but then you can go back in with the eraser to kind of create the fall off or the gradient. And that's a lot easier than painting in a gradient. Just a little bit there. Again, I'm going to dim down a bit. Okay, I think that looks pretty good for an initial block in of the rim light. That's going to make it a little easier for us to continue rendering out the rest. Go ahead and save. From here, I'm going to go ahead and just start fleshing out the eyes. Well, let's see, first I'm going to add some color to these lips. The bottom lip is a bit cooler. Oops. go back in later and flesh out those lips a bit more. I wanted to go ahead and get started on the eyes. So the pupils, I usually use kind of like a burnt umber, burnt sienna, cad red mixed with black for the pupils. You never want to just do solid black for the pupils, even though they look very dark. It'll kind of create a lifelessness in the eyes that you want to avoid. So yeah, you can see here that just by adding that dark kind of cad red mixed with black for the pupils, it adds some liveliness to the portrait. Again, when it's just completely desaturated, for some reason it just creates a sense of lifelessness. Same thing goes for the pupil. I do have some red in there, but I'm actually going to punch up the warmth, because that also will help liven up the portrait. All right, there we go. See in the tear duct, this little area is catching a nice highlight, and then kind of this fleshy, sorry, my wife's playing SimCity in the background, so we're hearing her characters talk. Oh, there's the dog. Your characters have been talking this whole time. It's like...
I thought I turned off the volume.
Nope. The dog was just barking.
Okay, hold on. Oh my gosh, my stinking dog.
And I think I'm going to go ahead and just throw the highlights in there. And again, I've chosen my lighting to be a warm light source, so I'm going to add a little more yellow and punch up the value a little bit, and I'm going to use that for the highlights on the eyes. Alright, need to go a bit brighter there. Those highlights look like they're coming from a spotlight, so they're very round. You can see the borders of the iris has a little more saturation, and it's a bit darker than value than the center. And just by the pupil, you can see there's a slight planar change where it's catching a little bit more light. So I'm going to try to indicate that. And you can see in his eyes, it looks like there's multiple lights. So there's another set of highlights just to the right of that primary highlight. And that one looks a little cooler and lower in value. I'm going to make it more desaturated. And I'm going to pull down the value again. Then there's another light source. I'm imagining this one's going to be quite a bit cooler. I'm just going to hit that real quick. And I can tell right now that I made the right iris a little bit bigger than it is. So I'm going to shrink that down. All right. Okay, we're going to go ahead and save it. But yeah, he's already starting to come to life here. So I just realized this video is already over an hour, and I apologize for that. I was not planning on this taking that long. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint the rest of this, but in the video I'm going to speed that up so we can condense this video to be a little shorter, and then I'll give some thoughts after that point. All right. Well, I apologize that I had to speed that up. As I said, I'm trying to do these shorter format videos, and this is the first painting one I've done while I'm talking and trying to describe my process, and it took a little longer than I thought. So hopefully you still enjoyed this format, and I'll try to post more videos on painting. Um, it's pretty fun doing this, but it is. I will say, I think drawing I can do more quickly, and I can multitask. Painting, I'm not quite at that level where I can talk and paint um, quickly at the same time. Um, anyway, that being said, I'll keep trying to improve, and I'll try to create more of these. Um, So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I also wanted to say before we finish, next Wednesday I'm actually doing a live stream with Proko.com. I'd love for you to join us, and we're I'm just going to do an anatomy demonstration, and yeah, we'll just have a fun conversation, and um, I hope you guys can join us. That'd be fun. All right. Well, until next time. All right. Bye.